Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be responding to Graham Gedney's video called My Communication Model. And so this is going to be my communication model in a response to sort of some of the things he was saying. So the first thing he's talking about is he's talking about people's ability to pick up and read facial expressions. And he's saying it maybe seems he's trying. I don't know if he says this explicitly. I don't think he does, but he's trying to say, when you're talking to someone, you should be sort of looking at them, picking up on all their nonverbals. But also, I could see how doing this too much, maybe staring straight at a person, is not so is not so effective for communicating what it is that you want to communicate to them. But definitely, looking at someone in sort of in the face, maybe not directly all the time staring in their eyes, but taking a moment to glance around, look at the scenery, maybe. Also, it shows them that you're thinking. I've heard that when people sort of look to their left, that's a sign like, oh, I'm thinking, And then something that kind of goes along with that, he's talking about his body posture, and the way he's faced in a mirror, watching his body posture, and so that could give the audience or whoever's listening to you different ideas about what you might be thinking. So, like for instance, if I lean back like this, you might think I'm contemplating something. Or if I, am sort of more forward like this, maybe I look more confident. And if I'm slouched, I look less confident. Things like that. And then I want to move on to the second thing he talks about. He talks about the Sophists and their ability to convince people of things, and sort of how people would hire them out to, I guess, just sort of win arguments for them, or sort of argue in their favor. And I remember what I remember about the Sophists is that they use what's called a dialectic method, which people also say Socrates used. Socrates having been famous not for necessarily writing anything or saying really anything of substance, but for just going around constantly questioning people. And so that's sort of what the dialectic method is instead of coming up with your own ideas, you sort of attack your opponent. It's a strategy where you attack your opponent's ideas in a attempt to sort of dismantle them, which points out the sort of paradoxes or the inconsistencies in their argument or what they're trying to say. And the whole intent behind this is to get them to side with you. And so the job basically of the sophist, or of someone who he later goes on and starts talking about Abraham Lincoln and using rhetoric, and it's basically the same thing as the dialectic method, as using questions, rhetoric, to try and convince people of things, to try and get them to, and then to try to give them, not try to then just give them the answers and say, well, this answers the question. This is how you should be seeing things, sort of. And so, yeah, so where was I going? So that's rhetoric, dialectic method. And I guess I do agree it's a good idea to keep in mind your body posture and um, and things like that. So, uh, for example, I want to point out a sophist who is in Symposium, who is the person that Socrates goes and seeks out. Sort of, she reminds me, sort of, it sort of is, well, not sort of, it definitely is outlining the hero's journey in the sort of this visionary quest of the hero wanting to seek out and find the truth. And so, to kind of put this in perspective, they're arguing about what love is. And I think in other translations of Symposium, it's they're using the word eros, which is a Greek god, but they're basically Socrates, after all of the poets start saying the different kinds of love and love between man and a man, a woman and a woman. They start talking about certain politicians and how they're more manly, and they sort of only want to be involved in these relationships with men, and they they sort of don't want to get married, or they only want to have as many children as the culture wants them to, and then just so because they have more of a manly kind of love, or I don't know that I agree with all of this, but I'm just saying that's sort of what starts it out, is poets talking about love and what it is, and they're basically saying, well, it is what brings people together so that they can complete each other, and sort of as it goes on is sort of through your own desire you come together with someone, or it doesn't even it I don't think it they necessarily even mean it has to necessarily be a person. It could be love for a certain art form, or love for really just about anything, I think, because later they go into talking about um, how some people are more into what is it? More into a kind of um, let's see. Yeah, no, it. I think it was actually. They're saying more. They have more of a tendency towards um, oh, I've lost my train of thought. Anyways, I'm gonna move on from that. Move on from that one, and I'm just going to um, try and get back on course where I was going here. But basically, how it starts out is like that. So, um, what love is, and they're personifying it as a god, Eros, and then later in the conversation between Diotima and Socrates, she is basically asking him all these kind of things, and sort of she tries to trap him in her questioning to get him to see things her way. And the way she does that is they start talking about the good and the beautiful things. Well, if a god is love, or is this thing, if this thing uh, um, if a God needs to be good and beautiful to be happy, or who needs to possess good and beautiful things to be happy, then sort of how can the same thing that this God possesses, how can that also at the same time be that God? And so they come to the conclusion that, well, love, eros, like cannot be that. And I think another cannot be a God. Love cannot be a God. Rather, it's something that is getting you closer, closer to it. Um, and I don't know if they ever decide on any any god that it belongs to, or anything like that. But it's just sort of eros, like as idea of love, and it's guiding you towards what you are putting at the top. And so to go along with that, you have the Greek word telos, which is like your highest aim, and what you're aiming at. And so they're saying this is the thing that's kind of getting you there. It's not what's at the top. It's the thing that's trying to push you there. And so just another something else about that, it definitely models these people, obviously, like, they're trying to get after the truth, and that's one way in which they're using their communication to try and find what they where their desires are kind of leading them. So more I think also another way of saying this might be you can't necessarily desire the thing that you already have. Desire has to be leading you toward an end, leading you toward an ultimate end, or an ultimate end for basically the desire itself. So, for instance, if you have a desire to go and eat food, you can't be you can have that desire until you have the food and you're eating it. You can't have that same desire again. You can only want to have more of it. You can only want to eat more food, but you can't have the same initial desire that you had. And so I'm trying to sort of more keep this on the topic of communication. We can have another talk about Symposium and the rest of it, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. And also something I think adding into communication as a whole, whether you're giving a speech to an audience, or whether or not, whether you're talking to your friend, is trying to use language that is going to relate to your audience. So maybe avoiding, if your audience doesn't know technical language, then you try to avoid it a little bit. Or if you do have technical language in there, you sort of give you get them on the same page as you, without completely losing the person you're talking to. Because everyone can't be an expert in all things, in all fields. Everybody's sort of got, one or two different kinds of expertise, and so things like that. But so you want to sort of avoid overcomplicating things. Definitely something I struggle with is not making things too complicated with language, and not just using very sort of simple, plain language to explain to basically explain something that can be understood, explain something that's complex, make it more simple. And so instead of taking something simple and making it harder, why would you want to do that? You know, if your goal is communication with multiple people or another person, then that probably would not be in your interest. So, you know, these are just my thoughts, and let me know, everyone else, let me know your thoughts. And this is my communication model. Goodbye.